thought I'd just do a little water demo. Hopefully you can see me where you are. Now, as I said, we were talking about J-stroke. I'll basically just paddle past a few times doing a J-stroke, and you can see what the deal is. But as I said earlier, essentially, it's that placing the paddle in, pulling it past, and rolling it over, okay? And it's up to you how you do that. You may decide that you want your lower hand below the gunnel, which to me feels uncomfortable, but that may be what you end up doing. You may end up with your top hand slightly higher than the gunnel and levering off. I'll try and show you from the other direction, and that will make more sense. More like that, okay? I'll show you from this way. This will hopefully also give you a good idea about sitting off to one side. Obviously your boat would be flat in tandem, but sitting off to one side so that you can have stacked hands, and this gives you that vertical paddle, okay? If you're sat this way, sort of in the middle of the boat, holding your hands in front, you end up with an angled paddle, and that's what we don't want. That pushes our boat off to one side. Obviously it will still go to one side a bit, but with you guys, if you're over to one side a bit with a vertical paddle, the boat will go much more of a straight line. It's going to go off a little bit, obviously, on a solo, but it will get much more of a straight line, and especially once you're up to speed and moving. I'll paddle towards you doing a J-stroke and you can get a picture, and then I'll paddle past either way and you can get an idea that way. I was beautifully demonstrating what you shouldn't do, which is look at the paddle. I'll do another one without looking at the paddle. Clearly concentrating too much. I'm hitting the boat a few times as I do it. down here, just so you know. That's okay, don't worry.
Should we go a different way?
No, it's okay, just letting you know it's there, that's all.
Thank you. Hold on. This is stupid thing to say.
Probably a few demonstrations there of varying quality of a J-stroke. I think if you're going to try for perfection in J-stroke, you're going to struggle. Everyone does. You know, I've been paddling for years and I still find it, if you actually analyse every single stroke, you're not going to get perfection. In an ideal world, at the end of that stroke, you would have that position with the whole blade under the water. I don't know if you can see me from there. Hopefully you can. Ideally, you'd have that whole paddle blade under the water. But to be honest, to get it in that position, you either have to have your hand below the gunnel, which isn't always comfortable, or to have it above, you have to have it at a weird angle. And it also depends on what paddle you've got. If you've got a paddle something like mine, with a large surface area, which I think you guys have actually, yours are quite similar, you're probably going to have a fair amount of that blade in the water, but you may have the kind of shoulder of the blade sticking out a little bit. Don't worry about it. As long as it's working, that's the main thing. If you've got a really long, slender paddle with an otter tail blade or something like that, you'll probably get most of that on the water. But again, if you haven't, don't worry about it. It's not a problem. But essentially, it's that vertical paddle as you draw it past you, and then rolling it over into that J. Vertical paddle, as it comes past, roll those hands over. I end up about here, and I, just where the paddle hits the gunnel, I then gently lever off the gunnel. It will wear your paddles out a bit more, but I find that a lot less effort on me than pulling the paddle out that way or kind of rolling it out that way or pushing it. I find it much easier just to gently lever it off the gunnel. And as I said, the more you can twist around, the more you can turn your body into it, the more you can face the side you're paddling on, the easier it will be to get into that position, the easier it will be in the top hand, especially if you slacken it off, and the more comfortable it will feel. But if you guys are sticking with your forward paddle and your stern rudder, no problem at all. So if that works for you, stick with it, but the thing to remember would be that turning slightly to face the side you're paddling on and sitting closer to the gunnel so that you can get your hands over the water. Whichever stroke you're doing, whether you're doing J or whether you're doing the forward paddle with the stern rudder, either of those doesn't really matter. As long as you can get your hands over the water in that vertical paddle, that will give you a much more efficient stroke. So into this position to start your stroke, okay? And it could be a forward paddle into a stern rudder. Same effect. Okay, hope that's helpful. Brilliant.